Every year millions of couples slide a ring onto a finger and say, "I do." We call it the ultimate symbol of love, commitment, and forever. But what if almost everything you've been told about the wedding ring is wrong? Long before it symbolized romance, it marked ownership. It sealed legal contracts. Some even believed it protected against evil spirits. And the sparkling diamond we now consider essential? That wasn't an ancient tradition. It was one of the most successful marketing campaigns in history. So, why do we wear a wedding ring? Why that finger? And who decided love needed a diamond? Today, we're uncovering the hidden origin of one of humanity's most sacred traditions. And by the end of this story, you may never look at a wedding ring the same way again. A hand trembles. Not from cold, from the weight of a moment 8,000 years in the making. A ring slides over a knuckle, past skin that has never worn one, and settles, quietly, permanently, onto a finger. 2 words are spoken. The room erupts. Somewhere a camera flashes. And no one in that room has any idea what they just did. Why that finger? Why a circle of metal and not a ribbon, a stone, a scar? Why has this single gesture survived famine, war, empire collapse, and the fall of 100 civilizations, unbroken, unchanged for thousands of years? You've been told it's about love, that the ring is a promise, a symbol of 2 hearts bound as one forever. That's not where this began. Long before churches blessed it, before diamonds sold it, the ring was something colder. A legal seal. A mark of ownership stamped onto a body. In some cultures it wasn't romance at all. It was a ward against evil, slipped onto the hand to keep something out. And this is only the beginning of how strange this story gets. Because in the 20th century, one company would look at a fading, half-forgotten custom and turn it into the most successful lie ever sold as tradition. So before you look down at your own hand, ask yourself this. Do you actually know what that ring means? Or has someone for thousands of years been telling you exactly what to believe? Let's find out where it really began. 3,000 years before anyone said, "I do," a woman in the Nile Valley wove a ring from river reeds. No gold, no gemstone, just braided hemp and papyrus, twisted into a circle and slipped onto her finger. To modern eyes it looks fragile, almost like a child's craft. But to the people of ancient Egypt, that flimsy ring carried the weight of eternity itself. The circle had no beginning, no end, no seam where it started and no point where it broke. And in a civilization obsessed with the afterlife, obsessed with permanence, obsessed with defying death itself, that unbroken loop meant something enormous. It wasn't decoration. It was a statement carved into shape. This bond does not end. But here's where it gets strange. The Egyptians didn't place this ring just anywhere. They chose the 4th finger of the left hand, and they believed something extraordinary lived beneath that skin. They called it the vena amoris, the vein of love, a single unbroken thread of vein and nerve running directly from that finger straight to the heart. Picture it. An unseen cord tethering hand to heart, flesh to feeling. To them, this wasn't metaphor. It was anatomy. It was fact. Slide a ring onto that finger, and you weren't just marking a hand. You were sealing a direct line to someone's chest. It's beautiful. It's poetic. It's also completely false. There is no vein connecting your ring finger to your heart. Modern anatomy has mapped every inch of the human circulatory system, and the vena amoris does not exist. But here's the unsettling part. The myth was so emotionally convincing, so perfectly poetic, that it outlived the civilization that invented it. It crossed empires. It crossed centuries. It is still the reason, right now today, that most of the Western world slides a ring onto that exact finger. An anatomical myth invented in Egypt, thousands of years before Christ, is dictating a decision you might make this year. But reed rings and heart veins were only the beginning. Because when Rome rose to power, the ring transformed into something far colder and far more permanent. By the 2nd century BCE, Roman marriage had almost nothing to do with romance and everything to do with law. Marriage was a transaction, a contract between families sealed with property, dowries, and increasingly, a ring. And Roman brides weren't given rings made of soft reeds meant to decay and be replaced. They were given iron. Iron doesn't bend easily. It doesn't rot, doesn't dissolve, doesn't soften with time. And that was exactly the point. A Roman husband wasn't handing his bride a delicate symbol of affection. He was handing her a physical, unbreakable declaration. You have been claimed. The iron ring, called the annulus prenubis, functioned less like a love token and more like a deed. A legal seal stamped onto a living person, marking a transfer of ownership from one household to another. And some of these rings carried a detail so chilling it stops modern viewers cold. A tiny engraved key. Not a heart. Not a flower. A key. Because in Roman households, a wife's new role wasn't partner. It was property manager. She oversaw the household goods, the stores, the domestic assets of her husband's estate. The key engraved into her ring wasn't a romantic flourish. It was a literal symbol of domestic control, handed to her, while simultaneously marking her as an asset that belonged to someone else. Ownership and duty fused into a single piece of iron, worn every day, for the rest of her life. As Rome's wealth expanded, so did the materials. Iron remained common for ordinary citizens, but the elite began commissioning rings of gold, not because gold meant more love, but because gold meant more status. A gold ring broadcast wealth. It announced to an entire society exactly how much a family was worth, exactly how successful the transaction had been. The ring had stopped being purely about possession. It had become a public display of value, stamped onto a body for everyone to see. Stop and sit with that for a moment. Two ancient civilizations, thousands of miles apart, independently arrived at the same core idea, but for entirely unromantic reasons. Egypt encoded eternity and a mythical vein into a woven circle. Rome encoded ownership, contract, and status into hardened metal. Neither civilization was thinking about love the way we think about it today. They were thinking about permanence, property, power. And yet, both civilizations planted a seed that would grow for thousands of years. The circle, the finger, the unbroken symbolism of forever. Somehow this fusion of myth and law would survive the collapse of Rome itself, survive invasions, survive the total reordering of the ancient world. Because empires do fall. Rome, the empire that turned marriage into iron and ownership, would eventually crumble into ruins by the 5th century CE. Its laws, its currency, its armies gone. But the ring survived the wreckage. It didn't disappear into history like so much of Roman civilization did. Instead, something even more powerful was about to seize it. A new institution was rising from Rome's ashes, one with more reach, more control, and more staying power than any empire. It wouldn't just preserve the wedding ring. It would rewrite its entire meaning, dragging it out of the world of contracts and property, and into something far more dangerous. The realm of the sacred, the eternal, the divine. The ring that once meant you are owned was about to become the ring that meant you are bound before God. And once the church got its hands on it, nothing about marriage would ever be simple again. Rome was gone. Its armies scattered, its laws dissolved, its temples crumbling into dust. But out of that wreckage, something far more ambitious was rising, an institution that didn't just want to witness marriage. It wanted to own it. By the early Middle Ages, the Christian church had set its sights on an ordinary domestic contract and decided it wasn't ordinary at all. Marriage, the church declared, wasn't merely a private arrangement between two families. It was sacred, it was eternal, and most dangerously, it was theirs to control. This wasn't a gentle shift. This was a takeover. For centuries, marriage had been handled at kitchen tables, in family negotiations, sealed with property and iron rings and nothing more. Now priests inserted themselves directly into the process, and by doing so they seized enormous power, the power to decide who could marry, when and under what conditions God himself would recognize as legitimate. And the ring, that small circle of ownership inherited from Rome, became their instrument. By the 11th and 12th centuries, the ring had migrated from a private legal token into the formal architecture of the wedding ceremony itself. It was no longer just handed over. It was blessed. A priest would hold the ring, invoke God, and sanctify it before it ever touched skin. The exchange now happened in front of witnesses, in front of the altar, in front of the church itself, transforming a private contract into a public spiritual event, watched not just by family but, they believed, by God. Think about what that meant for the people standing there. This wasn't a quiet moment anymore. It was theater with eternal stakes. If Rome's ring said you are legally claimed, the Church's ring now said something far heavier. You are spiritually bound, and breaking this is not just a broken promise, it is a sin. And once something becomes sacred, it becomes terrifying to get wrong. Superstition crept in fast, and it crept in dark. Imagine standing at the altar in the year 1200. The priest hands you the ring. Your hand trembles and it slips. It hits the stone floor. Gasps ripple through the church. To the people gathered there, this wasn't clumsiness. This was an omen. A dropped ring during the ceremony was believed to be a sign, a warning from God himself that the marriage was doomed, that misfortune, even death, might follow the couple home. And it got worse. If a ring ever cracked or broke during a marriage, even years later, many believed it meant the marriage itself was breaking. A physical fracture in metal was read as a spiritual fracture in the bond. Couples treated their rings as fragile vessels of fate itself, terrified that damage to the object meant damage to the union. Some went even further. In several medieval communities, people believed the ring wasn't just a symbol. It was protection. A physical barrier against evil spirits, against curses, against infidelity itself. Worn constantly, never removed, the ring became something closer to an amulet than jewelry. A small metal ward standing guard over a marriage the church had declared sacred. And it was during this era that the ring finger itself became doctrine. The old Egyptian myth, the vena amoris, the vein believed to run straight from the fourth finger to the heart, didn't just survive. The church absorbed it, and by absorbing it, weaponized it into religious teaching. Priests taught that this finger was the correct, God-ordained place for the ring, reinforcing an anatomical myth that had already been false for over 1,000 years. What began as poetic Egyptian folklore was now delivered from the pulpit as spiritual fact. But not everyone experienced this new sacred ring the same way. If you were wealthy in medieval Europe, your ring might carry a gemstone. A sapphire believed to represent heaven, a ruby symbolizing passion or blood, stones chosen not just for beauty but for symbolic weight. And often, tucked inside the band, hidden where only the wearer could see it, was something remarkably intimate. A posy ring. A short verse, a line of poetry or scripture, engraved into the metal itself. Secret words meant only for the person wearing it. Private devotion hidden inside a public, sacred object. But if you were poor, and most people were, your ring held none of that. No gemstone. No hidden verse. Just a plain, unadorned metal band. Simple. Blunt. Functional. The sacred meaning was identical in the church's eyes, but the material reality made something else painfully clear. Even inside something as spiritual as marriage, class never disappeared. Wealth still spoke, even through something meant to represent equality before God. For centuries, this was the ring. Modest. Symbolic. Wrapped in scripture and superstition, exchanged in candlelit churches, blessed by priests, feared and revered in equal measure. It had traveled an extraordinary distance, from Roman property deed to sacred spiritual seal, and by the late medieval period, this was simply what a wedding ring was. Nobody expected it to change again. Nobody expected it to explode into something almost unrecognizable. Because centuries later, an entirely new force would look at this quiet, modest little band, spiritual, humble, often nothing more than plain metal, and decide it wasn't good enough, not valuable enough, not profitable enough. A force with no interest in scripture, no interest in sacred vows, no interest in eternity or God or fidelity, only interest in one thing: convincing the entire world that this small, simple object needed to become the most expensive purchase of your entire life. And they wouldn't just sell you a ring. They would sell you a lie so convincing, so emotionally engineered, that nearly a century later, you probably still believe it's true. What was it? And how did one single company rewrite the meaning of love for the entire modern world? Subscribe, because Chapter 3 is about to show you exactly how deep that manipulation goes. 1938. A boardroom. And a company staring down a catastrophe. Diamond sales were collapsing. The Great Depression had gutted luxury spending worldwide. And even among the wealthy, diamonds simply weren't part of the marriage conversation. For most of human history, through Egypt, through Rome, through 1,000 years of church-blessed iron and gold, nobody needed a diamond to get married. They were rare, absurdly expensive, and largely irrelevant to the average wedding. If anything, gemstones like sapphires and rubies had carried more symbolic weight for centuries. One company controlled almost the entire global diamond supply. And that company was watching its market disappear in real time. So they did something audacious. Something that would go on to reshape human behavior for the next 100 years. They didn't lower prices. They didn't innovate the product. They hired an advertising agency and set out to manufacture desire itself. The campaign launched in 1938, but it wouldn't reach its full, devastating power until 1947, when a single copywriter at N.W. Ayer sat down and wrote 4 words that would alter the emotional architecture of modern romance forever. A diamond is forever. 4 words. No discount. No sale. No coupon. Just an idea, planted directly into the cultural bloodstream, that a diamond wasn't simply jewelry. It was permanence itself, crystallized, unbreakable, eternal. And if a diamond was forever, what did it say about your love if you didn't buy one? This is where the story turns genuinely unsettling, because this wasn't advertising in the traditional sense. It was psychological engineering, executed with terrifying precision. The campaign didn't just sell a product. It manufactured guilt, aspiration, and fear, and fused all 3 directly into the moment of proposal itself. They placed diamonds in Hollywood films, dressing leading actresses in engagement rings on screen, embedding the image so deeply into popular culture that audiences began associating diamonds with love almost subconsciously. They fed jewelry designs to magazines and newspaper editors, who published them as trend pieces, as if this were organic culture, not corporate strategy. They briefed lecturers to speak to American high school girls about diamonds and romance, planting the association before these young women even began dating. Layer upon layer, message upon message, until an entire generation absorbed the idea that this wasn't marketing. It was tradition. And then came the number. The campaign didn't just tell people to buy diamonds. It told them exactly how much love should cost. A man's salary for 1 month. Then, as the campaign escalated through the following decades, the benchmark crept higher. 2 months' salary. The message was blunt and brutal. Your diamond should cost roughly what you earn in 8 or 9 weeks of your life. Anything less and you risk signaling to her family, to everyone watching, that your love simply wasn't serious enough. Stop and absorb what actually happened here. A private company invented a financial rule with 0 historical basis, 0 ancient tradition behind it, 0 connection to Rome or Egypt or the church, and within a single generation, that invented rule became so deeply embedded in Western culture that breaking it felt almost shameful. Men who couldn't afford it went into debt. Couples who chose alternatives were quietly judged. A manufactured guideline had become an unspoken social law. By the 1950s, the numbers told the real story. Before this campaign, roughly 1 in 10 American engagements involved a diamond ring. Diamonds were still, at that point, an outlier, a luxury for a small slice of society. But by the end of the century, that number had exploded to over 80% of American engagements. Not because diamonds had become more available, not because they'd become more affordable, because an entire population had been convinced through repetition, film, aspiration, and carefully engineered guilt that this was simply what love was supposed to look like. This campaign is still studied today in advertising and marketing programs around the world, frequently cited as one of the most successful and culturally transformative campaigns of the 20th century. Not because it sold a product, because it invented from nothing. A tradition so convincing that decades later, most people still believe it's ancient. Sit with that for a second. The ring on countless hands right now, at this very moment, exists not because of Rome, not because of the church, not because of 8,000 years of cultural evolution, but because one company in one boardroom facing one financial crisis decided to rewrite the entire emotional meaning of marriage. And it worked so completely that most people proposing today have no idea they're reenacting a corporate strategy from 1947. The diamond had conquered the West. It had rewritten weddings, rewritten expectations, rewritten what real love was supposed to look like. All without a single ancient ritual, without a single religious doctrine, without a single ounce of the history that came before it. But here's what almost nobody realizes. While Western culture was being reshaped by a single advertising campaign, the rest of the world never stopped telling its own story. Different fingers, different hands, different materials, different meanings, different superstitions, traditions that had nothing to do with De Beers, nothing to do with diamonds, nothing to do with months of salary. Because outside the reach of that campaign, the ring kept evolving in ways almost no one in the West has ever heard of. And some of those traditions are stranger, and older, and far more revealing than anything you've seen so far. What is really happening on hands across the rest of the globe right now? You are not ready for how differently the world still wears this symbol. Right now, on this exact day, somewhere in Moscow, a woman slides her wedding ring onto her right hand. In Germany, a man does the same. In Norway, in Poland, in Bulgaria, in Greece, right hand, not left. And if you're watching this in the West, that single detail might feel wrong. Almost jarring. Because you've been taught, through centuries of Egyptian myth and church doctrine and a diamond company's global marketing machine, that there is only one correct hand. There isn't. There never was. Across huge swaths of Eastern Europe and South America, the right hand has carried marital significance for centuries, its own parallel tradition, evolving independently, owing nothing to the Vena Amoris, nothing to Rome, nothing to De Beers. Millions of people have lived entire lives, entire marriages, wearing this symbol on what the West would call the wrong hand, and their marriages were no less real, no less sacred, no less binding. Which raises an uncomfortable question: if the hand isn't universal, what else did you assume was fixed that never actually was? Because it gets stranger. In some cultures, there's no ring at all. In parts of South Asia, married women don't seal their union with a circle of metal on a finger. They wear it around their entire wrist, sometimes dozens of bangles at once, glass or gold, chiming with every movement of daily life. In other communities, marital status is announced not through a ring, but through a necklace, tied around the neck in a ceremony as sacred and binding as any Western vow. No finger, no hand, an entirely different part of the body carrying the entire emotional and legal weight that the West crammed onto one small circle of metal. Think about what that means. The ring, the object you assumed was the only possible way to symbolize marriage, was never actually necessary. It was one choice among many, made by specific cultures for specific historical reasons. And somehow, only one version of this story got exported around the globe as though it were the default setting for human love. And the superstitions? They didn't fade with modernity. They escalated. In some cultures today, removing your wedding ring, even briefly, even to wash dishes, is still considered a dangerous omen, an invitation for misfortune to enter the marriage. People shower with it on, sleep with it on. Some refuse to take it off for medical procedures, terrified of what that separation might symbolize. In other traditions, when a spouse dies, the ring isn't simply kept in a drawer. It's buried with them, sealing the bond even into death, or passed down through generations as inheritance, worn by a grandchild who never met the person who first slid it onto trembling fingers decades earlier. The ring becomes less an object and more a vessel, carrying grief, memory, and lineage across time. And metal itself was never neutral. In certain regions and eras, gold was deliberately avoided for wedding rings, associated with misfortune, with vanity, with spiritual imbalance depending on the belief system. Other communities considered iron protective. Others still trusted only silver. The idea that gold is the correct or traditional wedding metal, something so many people today assume without question, was never universal at all. It was regional, cultural, contested. Now bring this back to the diamond. Remember what De Beers built in 1947. The emotional machine convincing an entire generation that a diamond ring was not just tradition, but proof of love's seriousness. For decades, that message dominated. Unquestioned, unshaken. But something is shifting. Right now, in growing numbers across the world, couples are quietly walking away from the diamond entirely, choosing colored stones, choosing engravings, private words hidden inside the band, meaningful only to them, echoing something almost identical to those medieval posy rings from centuries ago, choosing matching bands for both partners, dissolving the old gendered asymmetry where only one person received a real ring while the other wore something plain and secondary, choosing sustainable materials, alternative metals, symbolism over status. And here's the part that should send a chill through you. Most of these couples have no idea they're doing anything except rebelling against modern consumerism. They believe they're being progressive, original, ahead of their time. They're not. They're accidentally reviving exactly what marriage looked like before a diamond company convinced the world otherwise. History isn't moving forward in a straight line. It's circling back on itself, generation after generation, each one convinced they're inventing something new while unknowingly echoing something ancient. So look at your hand, or think about the ring you plan to wear someday. Which hand does it sit on, and did you ever ask why? What metal is it made of? And do you know what that metal meant to the people who wore it centuries before you? Is there a diamond? And if there is, do you know whose voice you're actually listening to when you feel that a diamond is necessary for love to be real? Because here's the truth this entire investigation has been building toward. The ring on your hand was never inevitable. It was never universal. It was never simply tradition, handed down untouched since the beginning of human history. It was assembled piece by piece, century by century, from Egyptian myth about a vein that doesn't exist, from Roman law that treated a bride as property, from church doctrine that turned a legal contract into sacred spiritual armor, from a single boardroom in the 20th century that manufactured desire itself and sold it to the entire Western world as though it had always been there. Every layer was built by someone. Every timeless meaning was invented by a person, a culture, an institution with something specific to gain. And that should terrify you a little. Because if something this intimate, this personal, this seemingly eternal, was actually constructed piece by history, faith, and persuasion, what other traditions in your life do you believe are ancient, unquestionable, and true that were actually built the exact same way? Look at it again. That small circle of metal, sitting so quietly on a hand, yours or someone you love. It looks so simple, so permanent, so obvious. But you now know the truth buried beneath it. It began in Egypt, woven from reeds, tied to a myth about a vein that never actually existed. A fantasy of anatomy so poetic it survived thousands of years on emotional power alone. It hardened in Rome, forged into iron, stamped with keys, transformed into a legal seal that marked a woman as claimed property. A contract disguised as jewelry. It was seized by the church, dragged into candlelit altars, blessed before God, wrapped in superstition so heavy that a dropped ring could shatter a family's sense of fate itself. And then in a single boardroom in 1947, it was hijacked one final time. Rebuilt from nothing into the most expensive tradition ever manufactured, sold to an entire generation as proof that love wasn't real without a diamond. Ownership. Sacred seal, marketing weapon, and somewhere across the rest of the world, an entirely different story worn on different hands, different fingers, different bodies altogether, proving there was never one true version of this ritual to begin with. So ask yourself the question this entire episode has been circling. When you look at the ring on your hand, or the one you hope to wear someday, what are you actually looking at? Is it love? Or is it 4,000 years of ownership, religious control, and corporate persuasion, folded so tightly into a tiny circle of metal that it now feels like instinct, like nature, like something that was simply always true? Because it wasn't. None of it was inevitable. Every layer of meaning you've ever felt looking at that ring was built by someone, a priest, an emperor, an advertising executive. Each was something to gain from convincing you it was eternal. And that should unsettle you. Because if something this intimate, this personal, worn against your own skin every single day, was manufactured piece by piece across thousands of years, what else in your life do you believe is ancient, sacred, untouchable, that was actually built the exact same way by someone for a reason, sold to you as tradition? This is the pattern running underneath everything on this channel. The objects we never question. The rituals we assume are timeless. Somebody built them. Somebody profited from them. And most of us never once stopped to ask why. So the next time you catch yourself believing something is simply how it's always been, stop. Ask what you just asked about this ring, because we will keep pulling that thread. Subscribe because the next hidden origin might be something you touch, wear, or believe every single day.
This video is a work of historical documentary storytelling, created for educational and entertainment purposes. While the events, figures, and traditions discussed are grounded in historical research, certain scenes, dialogue, and imagery have been dramatized or reconstructed for narrative effect. All visuals in this video were generated using AI image technology and are artistic interpretations. They do not depict real historical figures, events, or specific documented individuals. Some cultural practices and superstitions referenced may vary by region, era, and source, and historical interpretations can differ among scholars. Viewers are encouraged to consult academic and primary sources for further research on the origins of marriage customs and jewelry traditions.